have an impact and how to get in the door. Todd Byars, who is a brand new lobbying group that we can help support. Todd?
Hey, and nice to see all of you again. I appreciate you coming out on a Saturday to deal with education issues and whatnot. I can remember when I first entered my education courses at FSU, and I guess it was 1990, and we got into some really great history of teaching courses, and history, of course, was my love at that particular point. And so I followed that part of the course more than a lot of the other teachers did, and went back to see that teachers, wherever we're talking about, have always had to, one of their jobs is to fight for their job. Because their job supports the community and bills the state. All of the people coming out of it will be employed, hopefully with a decent job, and they'll pay their taxes and can continue the system. And while there's a lot of people these days that say that education is no longer so important, generally the data that they're pointing to is either false or just completely made up. And for the longest term, we've been able to see, studying statistics and history, that the states that have the highest education standards also have the highest pay, the best benefits, the fewest social problems, so on and so forth. And these are not new trends. What is kind of new, and everybody's talked a little bit about it, is the lack of honesty in politics, where we're voting for these group votes. And I've seen everything that Linda's seen. I've had people lie to my face that were senators. I'm standing here face to face when they're lying to me about how they're going to vote on this thing. And I'm looking at the wall back there, and on the wall they have this big, huge Bible printed out with the 10 Commandments. Right there. Right. I'm sitting there looking at it, you should not lie. And here's Senator so-and-so, who's head of the Education Committee, is just going to town there. And they'll admit that to you, and sometimes they avoid you, like this happened to Linda. The aides are good. There are a lot of good people up there. But I want to take us from the individual fight that a lot of people have covered pretty well so far today into a slightly different picture. What we've got now is a different structure in government and a philosophy where if they can make it happen, if they can make $1 off of it, they're going to do it. And they're going to come forward and say they care about the students and all these other things in you. But it's not true. They're putting the money straight in their pockets. They don't want to hear us at a lot of these committee meetings. So this is why you have to get involved earlier in the legislative session, even before March. And they've already set up committees, and they're talking about a number of things. And Linda was good enough to show us how to get a hold of those. If you want to take it to the next step, besides writing a single letter, you can also look up, in addition to your senators and representatives, each of these committees. They'll have the paperwork, what they're discussing, and what their calendar is, and they update it off of each of those legislative websites that's on the back of her sheet. Now, the private sector also has a role, as does the community. To fight this new win any way that you can and take the money, we've had to go to more professional and larger organizations. Basically, it takes a company to fight a company. Government is the same as a big company. It's got a lot of inputs. We know that we can get the legislators' attention. We know that our facts are correct. And we know that the things that we're asking for are reasonable, especially in a state where the budget is growing this year and it will grow next year. The thing to remember here, and the politicians are going to come out, Governor Scott's going to claim all this growth. It's pretty much 100% baloney. If you want to respond to somebody on that, you ask him which specific programs did he add that added any jobs, you're going to get 0 on numbers. However, the rest of the nation has recovered, and since a lot of our economy is on the tourism that comes to the state, trends which are up for this year even more than last year, and are the reasons for the budget surplus, not all of his cutting. Right? We know money's out there, so the fight is going to get really nasty. For that reason, what I say in this session is that the Chinese word for danger means opportunity. Well, we've got complete chaos this year down at the legislature. The governor's budget was not really liked by most of the Republicans. It cost most of the Democrats, or it caught most of the Democrats by surprise. We know money's coming into the system this year and next year. Our fight needs to take a multi-year approach. We need to use professional methods. We need to take a look at and define what are we for. It's not good enough for us to say, hey, we're against this or this or this proposal. We need to come forward and say, hey, we need money for this. Schools are getting sued for this. These proposals that have been made in the legislature are hurting our schools. This is what we need to change. So for this year, I don't know if I've got a lobby group that we spend a lot of time down at the Capitol. Our goals begin with pay and public education. It's what we're supporting. We're against charter schools, and we're taking it a step farther than it's been taken before. We're this year going to expose all the fraud that's going on here in the state of Florida. So if you want to use a resource that I can provide here, openlobbyflorida.com, every day there's a new article up there about this fraud. We're going back after these corrupt Republicans, and we're tying it to their names. We're going to identify it for the groups when they go to vote for more money for charter schools. If you continue to grow your group and your groups within your communities and get a few more people involved, I think that we could have some really spectacular results. And one thing that's rarely happened in Florida, and I think we should make a change to, is the teachers don't come forward and ask for what they think they need. And as we know, unfortunately, from history, the teachers are not going to be asked what it is. All right? So I want to give you some hope this year. I think that we will get some positive increases. There's a lot of tricks and things that are being hidden in the budgets. There's a lot of things under the table that are going on. They're going to try and increase the funding for the charter schools. They're going to push again to try and fund religious-based charter schools. And they've already appropriated or plan to appropriate more money for building charter schools, while at the same time public schools will get no additional funds. And they've clamped down on the school construction on the public school side here for 5 years now. For the last 4, they've been giving money directly to the charter schools.
Have the public schools gotten any PICO money in the last 4 years?
Not that I'm aware of. No, originally they were supposed to get a large chunk, but as soon as the new governor came in, he killed that. Taking a look back at what you can do and how I want to close out today is we need to gather these goals and ideas. I need more input. All the different groups that are lobbying for education, the different associations, the different groups like early learning, everybody needs to know what these things are that we're asking for. We need to define these goals. If we can come up with a short list and everybody pushes together, then we stand a greater chance of getting what we seek. Since we know there's going to be an increase in budgets for the next 2 or 3 years, unless there's a drastic change in the economy, we can begin to ask for these things as part of a longer plan. And at the same time, expose the fraud and the bad things that are being done. So I'd like you to leave here today thinking that although things have been really bad for education in the last 5 or 6 years, they are going to improve. How much they improve and which direction we take is really dependent on you, not me or my lobby group or Linda and all of her heroic efforts. The unions are still under strength. They can usually only focus on 1 or 2 issues a year. There's still an awful lot of those education committee meetings, and Linda can tell you this, that the whole room is empty.
Oh, you know the Senate Bill 6, that was packed, right? Yeah. Senate Bill 736, I was one of 8 people. What they were doing, and I'm like, am I in the wrong room? They had, at the same time, and I'm sure it was just by accident, they had scheduled a whole union meeting going on, whether or not they could get rid of unions, at the same time. So, guess where all the reps went?
Well, and I will tell you that our grassroots work pretty well. I can speak from experience. Senate Bill 6, I was one of the advisors with Charlie Crist on some education-type issues. And the internet and Facebook and all the social medias were just getting popular. My other job is I run a computer services company. So we got online and joined up and created all these groups. By the time it came up for a signature, there was over 200,000 people that had signed petitions and things just online. We had so many people calling Governor Christ's office, it was shutting down their phone system. So many people emailing, they had to reset it. Okay, that along with the political pressure of the union and a whole bunch of other participants, we were able to get that defeated. The following year, though, after we knew that we didn't have Governor Chris to assist us, there probably wasn't a lot of people showed up at that particular meeting because, well, we knew we really didn't have much that could be done. The situation has changed now. The governor's going against his own party, which is already fragmented. The Democrats are still really weak and have no heavy-duty education objectives. Maybe you folks need to give them some. All right, any questions?
Okay, to hear Linda, one of the strong things for us to increase teachers would be FRS. I mean,
I would
your
think.
retirement is, huh?
I would think.
Yeah, and so would that be something you also think's important, Todd?
Oh, definitely. Protecting the FRS system
To
and
get teachers.
and maintaining any other benefits is definitely something we need to consider.
Incentive, because we have it. I mean, like she said, most of us sitting here.
And it's a good system. It makes money. It even made money in the years when the economy was really bad. Again, this is about people wanting just to take your money or to make money off of it. And
The money isn't going into their pockets, and that's what.
right,
This is
not
all.
enough of it is. And unfortunately, the sad thing is there will never be enough of it going into these kinds of people's pockets. Governor Scott is a multi-billionaire. He only claims about $200 million of it and pays taxes on the rest. The rest is in Barclays Bank, Cayman Island, Panama. There's a couple of international banks that does business down with there. And if you've seen the list of companies and things that he's put in his name or under his wife or other relatives' name, you know that quite a bit. I personally suspect, but have been unable to prove, that he's getting over $1 billion directly out of a budget area called health administration. It was the first thing that he changed that first year while he was cutting everybody else to the bone. And he pumped more than $1 billion into that. Almost all those contracts went to private agencies, a lot of which don't do anything. The FBI is afraid to take the guy on. They should have prosecuted him for fraud. We've been feeding information when we find evidence of fraud, individually or through one of my companies directly to the FBI for the last 3 or 4 years. So if you run across anything like that, shoot me an email. And, I don't have trouble going head-to-head with the guy.
What is the name of your lobbying firm? What is the name of your lobbying?
Open Lobby Florida.
Okay.
Our actions support all of our rights as enumerated in the Florida and the federal Constitution. Of course, the responsibilities that go with those, like in the Florida Constitution, we're supposed to fund education fully. Also, children, education issues, and corruption